What's up, everybody? UFC 302 is this weekend. Man, that sounds weird to say. I'm so used to saying the 200s. 302 is this weekend. Makhachev versus Poirier. And big fight and a big chance for Dustin Poirier to try to once again capture the undisputed UFC title. He has a chance to do so against Islam Makhachev. And man, a lot of people, I think, probably just by the nature of it being Islam Makhachev are counting Dustin Poirier out. But I think he's got a real chance in this fight. You know what I mean? And not just like a one punch, not that type of thing where he has to stun Islam. I think there are moments in this fight where Poirier can find success. And we'll talk about that a little bit more when we get to the main event. But first, couple things I want to talk about before we get to the main card. First, I saw yesterday Jack Della Maddalena is out of his UFC 305 fight. And I don't know if there was officially ever an opponent announced, but I know that he called out Shavkat. And UFC 305 was set to take place in Della Maddalena's hometown of Perth, right? So big loss for that card. And I would guess that if you do Maddalena versus Shavkat, that's your number one contender fight, right? The winner of that goes on to fight for the belt. They take on the winner of Leon versus Bilal. So, yeah, man, I mean, kind of a bummer, and I think Maddalena is a guy who has a ton of potential, and obviously Shavkat. Those are the two guys in the division right now. If you're looking at the prospects, man, that's a hell of a fight. So hopefully they're able to, put this fight on down the line. I think that's the fight to make in the welterweight division. And then speaking of the welterweight division, this was announced a while ago. I'm a little late to the ball on this. But Ian Garry versus MVP is a phenomenal fight. And especially looking at how MVP just looked against Kevin Holland. I mean, he beat him up pretty good. You know what I mean? There were moments where Kevin was able to find a little bit of success, get the fight to the ground, but even there, MVP was able to work his way back up. And Ian Garry's obviously very talented on the feet, but it's there's no one like MVP. Do you know what I'm saying? He's had so much experience in the game. His striking is so high level. It does make me wonder if the young guy coming up through, this undefeated prospect in Ian Garry, has a chance to beat a guy like MVP who's been established and who maybe struggles a little bit at times in certain aspects of the game. But that's really only the wrestling. And even that looked much improved against Kevin Holland. Man, good fight. Good fight. It's going to be an interesting battle. I just feel like when you're looking at them, though, the closest comparison to MVP is maybe Wonder Boy. That's your next best comparison, right? But even then, both of those guys are very, unique within their style. MVP does a lot of, fucking celebration that he does or whatever when he raises his hand up. That's real. He's like a snake in there, man. I mean, he snipes at you. And he closes distance very quickly, and he kind of comes from these unorthodox angles. He's hanging his hands down low. He's bringing things over the top. He just mixes things up so well, and he's fast. Right? And I think that he overwhelms guys. And it'll be interesting to see how Ian Garry deals with that problem, because we've seen Ian Garry get clipped and stuff before. I mean, he's dealt with a little bit of adversity, but man, he ain't fought no one like MVP. MVP has a lot of skin in the game. He's been here. He's done this. He proved that he can do it in the UFC at the highest level against a guy like Kevin Holland, who's a very rangy guy. Kevin Holland gives a lot of people trouble on the feet himself. Look at what he did to Buckley. I mean, he's finished Jacare from his back. He's able to strike in very unorthodox manners of his own, and I feel like MVP just showed that there are levels even to that. So, man, just looking at it, I think it's a great matchup, and I want to see how Ian Garry does. But MVP looked impressive, man. We'll see. We'll see how it plays out. Maybe my mind will change more. I have to go back and watch the fights, obviously, as we get closer to that one. But that's a great matchup in the welterweight division. Welterweight's stacked, man. The UFC is, I feel just in such a better place. Maybe heavyweight is still lacking a little bit, but there you've got Tom Aspinall, right? Sergey Pavlovich is still up there. He's still one of the most fearsome knockout artists in the heavyweight division. You got I don't know, man. There's talent at heavyweight. Like, there's people coming up to Curtis Blades, obviously, Jailton Almeida, Romanov, who are going to fight on this card. Like, there's some good talent at heavyweight. But, like, 185 is stacked, 170. The UFC is just in a really good place, and they're deep everywhere right now. I feel like pretty much every division is interesting to watch, in my opinion. But yeah, let's go ahead. Let's hop into this main card, start breaking the fights down. Actually, first, let's just rattle off the prelims. Kicking off the night, we got Andre Lima versus Mitch Raposo. Jocelyn Edwards versus Eileen Perez is up next. Basil Hafez versus Mickey Gall. Basil had that, speaking of Jack Della Maddalena, Basil had that impressive performance against Jack. I think that fight could have gone either way, depending on how you scored it. But he's taking on Mickey Gall. And then we go over to ESPN2. These are all the ones I just mentioned are on ESPN Plus. Then you can tune into ESPN2, where Alex Morono takes on Nico Price. That's a good matchup. Jake Matthews versus Phil Rowe. That should be a good one. This is a good card. And some good grappling should be on this card. I mean, Jake Matthews and Phil Rowe are both really good on the ground. Morono versus Price feels like it's more going to be like a knockout war probably. Grant Dawson versus Joe Selecki, that should be grappling. Man, damn, that's a good fight. That's a good fucking fight. Grant Dawson versus Joe Selecki. Those two are going to have some interesting exchanges on the ground. And a lot of the times when it comes down to this, where you have these two guys who are really talented in one area, they end up standing on the feet. So we might get a lot of exchanges on the feet and see one guy kind of, excel in that department, and maybe that's the difference maker. So I don't know. That's a good fight, though. I'm interested to see if it does go to the ground, who gets the better of those exchanges, because they're both very good in their own right. Damn, that's a good fight. I'm excited. I read through it, and I just like thinking about that matchup now, though. That's a great fucking fight. It might not be your fight of the night. I just don't think they're gonna. They might, like I said, they might stand and trade like that, but like. I just think that the exchanges we could potentially get on the ground are going to be really high level. That's a good fight. Cesar Almeida versus Roman Kopylov, another good fight. And then we get to the main card. Randy Brown versus Zaleski dos Santos, Elizar Zaleski dos Santos. So, man, Brown is one of those guys who I feel like when you look at him, he just has to get some of his defensive stuff under control, and he has the potential to be one of the top guys at welterweight. I mean, his loss to Jack Della Maddalena kind of set him back a little bit, but he's a long, rangy guy, right? He uses his range well, but I just feel like sometimes he just is a little bit defensively irresponsible, and when he goes into attack, sometimes he overextends or hangs out in the pocket a little bit too long, and he's there to be countered. That being said, he's really good on the ground, right? He has really good jiu-jitsu. He's long, he's lengthy, he's hard to take down, so he tends to do well in the clinch scenarios as well. Randy Brown's a good fighter, but he's going up against a guy in Zaleski dos Santos who I feel this is important, right? He's durable. He's been raw. He's been through the gauntlet, right? But Zaleski dos Santos will be there in the second and third round, right? And he'll still be doing what he can to fucking win the fight. And I think that's something that you can't discount, right? Because I think that if you watch most of Randy Brown's opponents in most of his fights, they struggle with him early on, and then maybe they find out, Wellington Turman would be a good example, where Randy Brown starts really hot, and then you can kind of start to figure it out and give Randy some problems, right? Now, granted, Randy won that fight. It was a good win for him. But I'm just saying, Zaleski dos Santos is a veteran. He's the kind of guy who does get behind sometimes. He does get hurt and battles his way back. And I just feel like Randy Brown has to be on his A game all the time, because dos Santos also has power, and he is willing to exchange. He is willing to throw. And the defensive irresponsibilities of Randy Brown, that's what makes me nervous a little bit. I think that Randy Brown always has to be minding his P's and Q's, and he can't get into these wild exchanges with dos Santos. If you see a patient Randy Brown who's sitting on the outside, not overcommitting to things that aren't there, using his kicks, using a lot of variety, taking the legs out from dos Santos and working his way up and down methodically, I think Randy Brown wins this fight. This is a fight that he should win. But you do not want to get into a war of attrition with Zaleski dos Santos, right? So you don't want to let him start establishing and making this a dirty fight letting him pressure you back behind the line. I think that's where you see Randy Brown maybe run into some adversity, right? I feel like if Dos Santos can be the one pressuring forward, it's a problem. But overall, I feel that Randy Brown is just sharper. I feel like he's going to be able to hit Dos Santos where he's not really going to be able to touch him, and it's going to create problems for him. But man, if Dos Santos gets on the inside, and 15 minutes is a long time to fight and a long time to hold that range. And like I said, there are just some things that make me nervous with Randy Brown. And when you get a guy like Dos Santos who mixes things up well himself, he's very well-rounded, right? Like when he's willing to go, man, people who are willing to go create opportunities. And if that, you know what I mean? If those defensive things, like I said, if those aren't shored up, if he's not all the way in or all the way out and really using his range well, if he's hanging out in the pocket too long after he throws, and Dos Santos starts finding the counters, man, it could be dangerous for Randy because, like I said, sometimes I think guys get a little hesitant against Randy, but I don't know that Dos Santos will. He's willing to be aggressive, and he's been through the wars. He's willing to throw. So this is an interesting fight to me for that reason. I think Randy Brown wins, but I would not be surprised at all to see Dos Santos find success. I think there's a lot of good underdog bets on this card, in my opinion, and I think Dos Santos is one of them. Randy Brown should win this fight, but I just feel that Dos Santos is a guy who creates opportunities, and he might find it. I don't know, man. I don't know. I would be more willing, just because of the odds, I would be more willing to put the money on Dos Santos, I think, just because, I don't know. There's that chance, right? All right, next, heavyweight matchup between Jailton Almeida and Alexander Romanov. So Almeida looking to rebound after his loss to Curtis Blades at UFC 299. Almeida was really controlling the first round. And, I mean, for him to do that to Curtis Blades was super impressive. I don't think that we can discount that, how dominant he has been, right? He dominated Derek Lewis. He dominated Curtis Blades through the first round. And then Blades found the knockout, which is ultimately all that matters, right? But, man, he's going up against Alexander Romanov. And the question is he going to be able to do that to a guy like Romanov with the kind of wrestling background that Romanov has? These guys both kind of had similar starts to their career where they both had they rattled off 4 or 5 wins. They were almost all finishes, right? Almeida just running into his first loss in I don't know how long, years, right? But his first loss in the UFC promotion against Blades. And Romanov dropped a couple there, right? Who did he lose to? But anyway, I feel that in this fight, the most important thing, I think, again, sometimes you get these collisions where two guys are really good at one thing and you end up getting a fight that ends up taking place on the feet as opposed to in the grappling exchanges where you think it would happen. However, I think the biggest difference maker is that Almeida is good on the feet. His hands are up. He has a little bit more range. I think he's going to be faster and more athletic, which gives him an advantage. And I think that because of that threat on the feet that he poses, that Romanov doesn't – maybe I'm wrong. But I think that Romanov telegraphs a little bit more on the feet. And Almeida, because of his speed advantage, is going to be able to capitalize on that. I think you're going to – and this is the thing that I think will dictate the fight is that Romanov is very good when he makes connections and gets grips and he's in the clinch with you, right? He's able to hit all these big throws. He's good at getting behind guys. But Jailton chases the legs. And I feel like when he chases the legs, I just feel like it's a better way to take guys down in MMA, right? Not that upper body, not that you can't find success with it. I mean, look at how Romanov opened up this career. There's plenty of guys that you can look at that they're examples of, they do great when they wrestle upper body. But overall, I feel like it's going to be the willingness for Almeida to shoot to the legs, and he's going to be able to create because he's going to be a little bit faster on the feet. I think he's going to be able to get the hands of Romanov going up, and then he's going to be able to take him down. And once he gets Romanov down, I think that it's going to be very hard for Romanov to get back to his feet because Almeida's a guy who just keeps slicing through your guard until he finds a submission. He's very dangerous there. And I think Almeida gets him out of there via submission. Like I said, it's maybe not. Maybe I'm wrong. And maybe Romanov takes him down and he's able to hold him there. But I just feel like Almeida's jiu-jitsu is going to be good enough that if Romanov does get him down, he'll be able to work back up to his feet. I'm not saying that Romanov doesn't have a chance to get this fight to the ground, get on top of him and control position. But I just think that it's going to be the level changes, right? I think Almeida has way better level changes, and his ability, like I said, to get to the legs as opposed to relying on clinch exchanges and the upper body grips. He's going to constantly be dropping his level back down. And then on the feet, that range, he's willing to throw. Romanov telegraphs a little bit with his overhand. I just think this is a fight that really leans toward Jailton Almeida. And the key for Romanov is going to have to be to put pressure on. If you can see him start pressuring Almeida back against the cage and cutting off like the distance a little bit more, right? He can maybe start exchanging in the clinch and just wear on him there a little bit, right? Beat him up in the clinch, up against the cage, and now we might be able to start finding success in getting takedowns of our own. But I feel that this fight, like I said, it's just like Almeida's athleticism is going to let him dictate the pace, and he mixes in that wrestling so well that I think he's going to be able to get to the takedown. And like I said, I think he's just going to put everything together a little bit more, and he's a little bit more athletic. I think Almeida gets it done. Kevin Holland versus Michael Oleksiejczuk is next. This is a good fight. I feel like Holland, again, looking to rebound after that MVP loss. Man, it feels like this is Holland's fight to win, right? But Oleksiejczuk is good. And again, speaking of guys, like we talked about this with Dos Santos, he creates opportunities. Oleksiejczuk will create opportunities for himself. He's got a very boxing-heavy stance, right? He's willing to throw combos. He's got a sneaky, fast left hand, right? I mean, it's quick, and he gets it in there from different angles. He changes up the timing on it. He's willing to go to the body here and there. But really, he throws punches and bunches, and he's quick with that left hand. He could create some problems with that, with his movement and stuff. But overall, I think Kevin Holland, just with his range, he's going to be throwing those kicks out there. Kevin Holland is really good in the clinch exchanges. I just feel like Holland has the better resume, and I feel like his experience in this fight is going to shine through. Not that Oleksiejczuk isn't an experienced fighter. I mean, he's 19-7. He's got 25-plus professional fights to his name. But Holland's just mixed it up with so many guys, and I feel like Oleksiejczuk is going to have to, take some risks, and I feel like Kevin Holland's going to be able to capitalize on that and just control. I think he controls the fight pretty much anywhere it goes in this one. I like Kevin Holland in this fight. Paulo Costa versus Sean Strickland. Now, Sean Strickland, former champion, right? Beats Israel Adesanya, loses to Dricus. Now he's fighting Paulo Costa. And this is a fight where, again, I'm talking about underdogs that I like. I kind of like Costa in this fight. And it's not because don't get me wrong, the 5-round format that this fight's going to take place, that favors Sean Strickland in terms of the cardio, I think, right? But the thing is Sean is somebody who relies on getting his timing very early, right? That's kind of how he fights. He gets things going, he kind of finds his range early, and then he starts teeing off on you and he accumulates with volume. It's not that he doesn't have power. Look at what he did to Izzy. He rocked him, right? But he just has really good fucking timing, and he's just very consistent. I think that's going to be a problem against Costa, because you start looking at his losses and how he lost to Whitaker, but man, Whitaker is a completely different style than Sean Strickland. Sean stands in front of you, and what makes me nervous is Paulo Costa has a really good jab. Whitaker's a guy who's changing levels. He's countering. I mean, he overwhelmed Costa on the feet, right? Costa didn't have the answers. He didn't he was overwhelmed. But Strickland is going to be there to get hit. Strickland kind of relies on just being able to put more on you. He puts his hands on you more often than you put your hands on him. But Costa has that power and that jab. And when someone has a powerful jab, even though I know it's Sean Strickland and he has that ability, he will walk through things. I think he'll do that. But I just feel like Costa is very powerful. And there's going to be consequences for Strickland trying to cover the distance and walk into that. And because of Costa's explosiveness and his jab, and he throws that kick up there. He has that, oh man, he rocked Whitaker at the end of that first round with that spinning kick. Costa's dangerous. And I just worry that Sean and his style and how it's kind of like lumbering and a little bit flat-footed, man, if it goes 5 rounds, you think it leans towards Sean. Like I said, he's got the cardio. He will be there in your face. He will be consistent, just putting that volume on you. But I just feel like the power of Costa at some point is going to be a big difference maker. And it can be, even if it does go 5 rounds, it can be hard to get beat up like that for 5 rounds if you're getting hit with power. I just feel like Costa has the power, and in a fight like this, I kind of lean towards the power because I think he's going to, in the moments where they do exchange, it's not like Costa has to throw as often as Strickland, in my opinion. I think Costa can throw less often and land and do more damage, right? And like I said, that damage can wear on a person, right? So I think there might be swing. This is a good fight. This is a good matchup. And I'm not counting Sean Strickland out by any means. You could absolutely just see him go out there, start dotting him up, stay responsible. He does deal with the jab well. He's not real, but like, I just think that Costa has so many weapons, and we're sleeping on him a little bit in this fight. I think he could pull this one off. He's got a wide variety of strikes that he can throw. He's got serious power behind all of them. He's got a nice jab. I just feel like he has a style that could potentially overwhelm Strickland. So, I don't know. We'll see. Sean Strickland's a world champion, though. Obviously, a lot of people think he won the Dricus fight. His fight against Adesanya was super impressive. And, yeah, he's one of the best in the world. There's no doubt about it. But I just kind of feel like Costa's due a little bit too, weirdly. So we'll see. We'll see how this fight goes. Finally, all right, we get to the headliner. Islam Makhachev versus Dustin Poirier. This is one where I feel like I'm just playing into the net. Like, I want to believe in Dustin. You know what I mean? I want to believe that he can do it. And if you look at him and his skill set, maybe he can. Right? I can't decide if I'm trying to convince myself just to see, because I want to see that story and see it fulfilled and see him win the title and maybe ride off into the sunset, retire, whatever he decides to do. Like, you want to see after the career he's had him get the undisputed title against this guy who he's a massive underdog against in Makhachev, right? But I can't decide if I'm doing this thing where I just want that to happen. I don't think so, man. I think Poirier really has a chance. But it depends on how the fight plays out, right? Like, I just think if you look at the skill set, Islam is probably a little bit better everywhere, right? He's probably a little bit better on the feet. He's a little bit better with his kicks, the kickboxing, like. But Dustin is good. He's just there consistently. He's in your face. He throws volume. He's a very good boxer. He will throw kicks and stuff in there, but primarily he's good with his hands. And I talked about this in the Dos Santos fight, but the durability factor. Dustin Poirier is durable, man. It is hard to get him out of there. Look at the Benoit fight. I'm fucking the names up like crazy today. The Benoit fight. Benoit, whatever. I don't know. Saint Denis. Look at the Saint Denis fight. Look how he's durable, right? He just is, man. He's hard to put away, and I think he'll be, especially like, I don't know, man. He's been knocked out by Gaethje, obviously, right? He got hit with the head kick. And then if you watch Islam's fight against Volkanovski last, you know that Islam, you got to watch out for the head kick, right? So Dustin's going to, I just feel like he's going to be cognizant of that and have the tools to deal with that. I feel like he's going to be able to get his hands going in certain moments. But overall, like I said, skill for skill, I feel like Islam's better. I think he's going to be able to dictate where the fight takes place. He'll be able to take the fight to the ground. And he's got really fucking good kickboxing. He only takes chances when he feels like there's like ample opportunity. The threat of the level change is always there. He's a really fucking tough problem to deal with. But Poirier has fought Khabib now, right? And you saw him find, again, not really success. It was domination. I don't want to take away from what Khabib did. But moments where you do see, Poirier can wrestle a little bit. Like, he tried to hit a switch on Khabib. I mean, granted, Khabib stuffed it. But, like, against most guys, you feel like that probably works. Poirier has felt Khabib's pressure, and he knows what this is like. He knows how to prepare for this fight, right? It's just like Islam has those weapons on the feet that Khabib really didn't have, and that added threat it complicates things. I think it makes Islam a little bit more difficult to prepare for, because you do have to be aware of that head kick. You do have to be aware of the boxing and the strikes coming your way. With Khabib, you just kind of knew that he was going to box you and like maybe throw some wild, weird shit with his legs, but eventually he was just going to pin you up against the cage or try to get to the legs, right? Islam can do a little bit more on the feet, it feels like. And again, you got to worry about that in camp. You can't just spend all this time trying to get back to your feet. You got to get ready for a guy who can fucking legitimately strike. So I don't know. I just feel like when it comes down to the fight time, though, like Poirier, his instincts are going to take over. He's just going to box. The key for Poirier, like I said, skill for skill, I think Makhachev probably can beat him on the feet. He can take him down, dictate where the fight takes place. But the way that Poirier can make this fight difficult, obviously stuffing takedowns would be great, but he has to return to his feet. I think he's inevitably going to get taken down, but he has to prove that he can get back up. Islam's great at once he gets a takedown, he holds you there, right? It's hard for people to get back up. If Poirier can do that once and he can do it quickly, you can start to establish a little bit of a rhythm and then start letting your offense go on the feet, because you've proven that you don't have to be as worried about the takedown coming your way. Obviously, you don't want to get caught in a situation where you're overconfident. There's all these different factors we could start talking about. But if Poirier can stay chest to chest, or obviously option one is stuffing it. But I just think that Islam's eventually going to find the timing. And it's like, what response do we see out of Poirier, and what does the energy expenditure look like? If you see a big burst of energy and he gets caught in a position because maybe he overreached on something and gave something up, you could see Islam get Dustin out of there early and submit him, I think, right? But if we start seeing Poirier just methodically, slowly start building back up, getting underhooks, getting distance, framing, pushing away, if we start seeing that type of stuff, we got to fight now. Now it's a fight, right? Because I think that these two going at it on the feet is very interesting. Because I do think that Poirier is going to have an advantage in terms of the fluidity of his hands, maybe a little bit more in the head move, like the boxing department, right? But Islam's just got that more like, I don't know. I don't want to call it more disciplined style. That's probably not the right word, but he is a little bit more like safe on the feet, I would say, than Dustin. Dustin's willing to throw it down. Like, look at his Dan Hooker fight. They had like some of the craziest rounds ever. But getting back to the feet, how early can you do it? And can you discourage Islam from shooting, or letting him know, like, fuck it, shoot on me, but I'm willing to trade right now? We could see a totally different fight if Poirier can just get back up. We'll see. We'll see how it plays out. But I think it's a good fight. I think Poirier has a chance. Again, maybe I am just trying to convince myself. Don't get me wrong. If I'm picking Islam. But at the odds, I'm putting a little bit of money on Poirier, man. Fuck it. I like Poirier and Costa in this fight. But, yeah, I don't know. That's going to wrap this one up, guys. I'm looking forward to it. Big card this weekend. Lightweight title on the line. Like I said, former champion Sean Strickland versus Costa. That's a big fight. Kevin Holland. Almeida versus Romanov. Huge fight. I mean, really good fights this weekend. So, yeah, we got 303 to look forward to next. Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, guys, like I said, that's it. If you enjoyed, do me a favor, subscribe, comment, all that good shit. Otherwise, I'll catch you later. Thanks for tuning in. Bye-bye.